If there's one thing I learned since I have been making videos over the last 5 years, it is that people get just about as angry, if not more, when you talk about nutrition and food as they do when you talk about politics and religion. It can be a very polarizing topic. And one of the things that I have learned that is missing in the context of these nutritional conversations is the context around seasonality, UV index, and health conditions. What is going on with the individual with their health? Where are they located on the globe? And what season is it? And this really should determine what sort of a diet someone eats rather than a particular dogma, and people that kind of choose to make their whole identity their diet. And so today I'm sharing with you a short snippet of a conversation that I had with my good friend, Dr. Sara Pugh. The full conversation is 2 hours long. I have not decided if I want to share that in podcast format. If you want to hear a 2 hour conversation with us, comment below to let me know your interest in that and I will consider it. Otherwise, the full interview is posted in my private community currently. It's been there for a couple of weeks now. So you can join my community. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well if you want to listen to the whole thing. And then you'll also get 20% off of courses, as well as free invitations to challenges, webinars, all of that good stuff. So I'll put that in the show notes, but let me know in the comments if you want to hear the whole conversation. But Dr. Sara stayed with me for 2 months. And when you live with someone for 2 months, you really get close with them and just get to kind of pick their brain about all sorts of things. And so this was a really fun conversation we had about nutrition and just looking at it through a different lens, what we see with thyroid, with hormones, and how people might struggle a little bit more in the summer months with these diets that are more keto carnivore and why that is. So I hope you enjoy it. Before we jump into today's episode, just a couple of quick announcements. There are a few sales going on right now if you like to shop or if you're looking for a last minute Father's Day gift. Holy Hydrogen. Now, we do talk about hydrogen at the end of the conversation. They're giving an extra $100 off through the 17th, which is Monday, June 17th, when you use the code SARAHK. I'll put that link in the show notes for you. I'm also offering 20% off of some of my courses that I don't normally put out there. I took a whole bunch of the courses down, like cold therapy, quantum exercise. Those have been off my website for a while, but I have them 20% off and available just through Monday. I'm also doing a summer solstice 21-day leptin reset, which is a live version of the 21-day leptin reset where you get daily emails, Zoom meetings, and a community along with the program. So that is available. And I think that's it. If I see any more sales, I know Harmony 783, the grounding shoes, those are on sale for 20% off. I'll put that link in the show notes for you as well. I think that's all the sales that I know of right now that are happening. But I hope you enjoy this conversation and have a fantastic rest of your weekend or day whenever you're listening to this episode.
That's the other thing that I found really interesting in Georgia, because I ran lots of leptin. I think I ran it 3 times actually, and I was actually scared of. I didn't know how to reintroduce carbs properly because obviously my brain thought it was still May, although my biology was like, well, hang on a minute, this looks like the middle of summer to the UK,
Right.
because the weather in May in Georgia is how if we have a good summer would be in August.
Wow.
So it's one of these things that, but also again, my biology would know I was in a different location because I did that much grounding because I hardly wore any shoes and
You were grounding all the
I had to
time.
buy a standing desk for working because there was loads of effing and being over the laptop, and I was like, right, I'm not using it anymore. And so my body didn't know I was in a different location. I think that's something that a lot of people always ask me questions about, is about which carbs to
Right.
introduce.
Right.
And like, for keeping stuff simple, didn't we kind of narrow it down to just say the baked apples and honey? That's what I found, for a treat. Say if you wanted a treat, because that's the other question people
You and Matt like
ask all the
honey. I
time.
don't do honey. Like I just
No.
like it repels me. I'm like, "Ooh, I don't want to do honey at all. Like I don't know. I have never experimented with honey. I know a lot of people do. But if I'm gonna do carbs, it's baked apples. I'll do because I make the little potatoes for James. So I'll boil the potatoes, put them in the fridge, kind of do like a resistant starch type of deal with the potatoes. Squashes, we did get
Oh,
that.
yes, yeah, we like squash, yes.
James loved the spaghetti squash as a ball to roll down the hill and explode. And we
Oh,
did,
but I still ate it afterwards.
yeah,
And
you
also,
did. We didn't waste it.
no, and then also I really liked the giant watermelons, and
Yeah, the giant
it was
watermelon.
so massive I had to freeze it
Yeah,
because it was like, well, okay, idiots, now what are you going to do with this thing? Because it won't
yeah,
fit in your, we've got a video of James rolling it down the hill, and it's like probably weighs, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 Jameses anyway.
yeah.
So that I found the frozen watermelon, because it's kind of um refreshing, but it's not
Mhm.
too much carbs and sugar.
Right, right. In this,
When
if
I'm not
the
used to
UV
it.
index is like 11, 12, you can stand outside grounded in the middle of that and have the watermelon, I think, and not have the same blood sugar impact than you would if maybe you were upstairs with all the windows closed eating it, in April. It's different. I feel like when the UV index is higher, your body, and you're outside eating it, then you're obviously, we have the studies to show what light does to blood sugar.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's context because I know a lot of people kind of are on both of our channels that are of keto, of carnivore, and like what we're talking about right now is like absolute friggin' blasphemy to talk about foods that are not meat. But you and I have at the same time, we have worked with probably thousands of people at this point, and we see the nuance and we see like the seasonality and how sunlight actually comes into the equation and can make your body more insulin sensitive, or the lack of it, more insulin resistant. And that, this is the one thing I wanted you to talk about is uh, trying to be carnivore or trying to be very strict keto in this environment where there is a lot of UV. Um, for me, I struggled so hard. I mean, when I look back at my carnivore pictures of when I did a 7-day water fast, and I just was like trying so hard to just like make my body adapt to this no carb carnivore, and my body was just fighting me in all regards during the middle of the summer doing that, and I just didn't get it. I just thought, well, maybe it's me. But I'd love for you to just expand on that. The strict keto, strict carnivore in a high UV area, and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think just in simplicity, because it's summer, the body expects abundance, and also thyroid hormone varies
That's the
throughout the
thing, is a
year.
thyroid hormone. It changes in summer versus winter, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And also,
And the
it's just,
microbiome.
yeah, absolutely. And also, I've run so many thyroid labs and like gone mad at them and shown you, and
Mm-hmm.
gone madder. Then got found Quest where I can run things like thyroid uptake and calcium, because calcium is a big thing that people miss with low thyroid. But I
Oh,
just think
yeah.
from just a basic thing. It's sort of I've given up fighting Mother Nature now, and if the things are growing, my physiology knows they're there, and you do need an amount of carbohydrate for certain thyroid conversion reactions, but also it's just something I've done it myself, and I went to this conference once, and it was a keto conference, and I was being super strict keto, and just the level of mania was just on another level, and I really
Hmm.
appreciate the people like Dr. Jen Unwin and Dr. Ian Lake, who were really kind and patient with me, and Beth Zupek Kania, who were just like, okay, you're obviously completely insane, but I'm just going to give you a chance. So I'll always remember that, because when people are really kind to you when you're in a terrible place, it means a lot, because
Yeah.
obviously there are people who love to kick you, or people kick people by accident when they're down,
Mm-hmm.
like trolls on the internet, because they
Mm-hmm.
obviously don't know what's gone on in your life or my life, or what your
Mm-hmm.
daughter or son have done, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay,
Yeah,
I
like the
really,
woman the other day with the
oh
hydrogen
no,
comment,
yeah.
and I sent it to you.
Oh yeah, exactly. We'll come back to the hydrogen machine, because that's
Yeah,
something that people have got really angry about. But it's one of those things I'm very much okay. If you don't want to do it, then
don't do
just
it.
don't do it. It's the same with
Don't buy it.
keto. Yeah, don't buy it. And also, just back to carnivore and keto, I think carnivore is really helpful, and keto, because carnivore is very simple, and it can get you started. But you'll just find that you know, a lot of the times it's more for women than men, just because we
Yeah.
tend to have more sensitivity to our thyroid. Back to that again, because that's the other thing, when I had the little bit of antibodies raised and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So the whole thyroid thing in women, men do encounter thyroid issues, but women do more so.
Mhm.
And then we have to deal with periods, and that's another
Mhm.
time when, if with carbs and insulin and progesterone and cycles and everything like that, I think you need an amount of carbs there. But then again, always test everything, because I
Yeah.
ran the progesterone and estrogen and testosterone over a cycle. I also ran pregnenolone, DHEA, and DHEAS, and it was like I was showing you, it was like the best period I'd had, because it was perfect, sort of 29 days, and
Mm.
I said, oh, I could have had a baby this month. But again, because that was like the second month I was with you, I'd already found a way to reintroduce carbs that were appropriate, like
Mm.
again, dairy that's not raw,
Mhm.
because the calcium's been disturbed. That can be a real issue for thyroid, because calcium blocks thyroid uptake into the
Mm.
cell. And if people get a HTMA, just because it shows your calcium
Is
is
low.
low, it doesn't mean anything. It means,
No.
because HTMAs are measuring how much is being excreted, and on HTMA tests you have to read sort of ratios of the main four, like the potassium, sodium, magnesium, and
Mhm.
calcium. Even if you just learned how to be an expert in those, that's going to be a massive help for you for, you know, working out what should I eat. And that kind of leads me into the other thing about the slow or the fast metabolism,
Oh,
or the
that's
slow or the fast
how many
oxidizer.
times do we get that in our groups of like, I did an HTMA and I have a slow metabolism. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Oh no,
Like,
because I've, yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
mean you have a slow metabolism. An HTMA is not going to tell you if your metabolism is slow or fast. Like, let's break that down a little bit, because it's a very high point of confusion for people. And then it's like another way for someone to throw up a roadblock for themselves and say, well, I'm just this, nothing's going to work because I have a slow metabolism. I'm like, let's
Oh
not
no,
do
it's not that. It's to do with being a fast or a slow oxidizer.
yes.
And it just means that the people who are technically the fast oxidizers just do better on a keto diet or fat. So that might be, people might be saying, oh yeah, but I've done keto and carnivore for 10 years and I just feel amazing. Well, maybe they're a fast oxidizer through and through, because there's always going to be grades of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody who's more on the slow oxidation side, these people tend to gravitate towards the Ray Peat or
Yeah.
the metabolic thing. But then that's a good idea. It's like in theory, but then the weight gain, if you on that, can just be horrendous. And if you do it wrong, all it means
Oh
is
yeah.
those people are kind of going to find doing cyclical keto or low carb or paleo is going to work for them. But it doesn't mean that they can't do keto or fast. But then, like everything, because these HTMAs depend on hormones and minerals, and those are controlled by light,
Yes.
you can be, you know, you've done a test where one time you were a slow oxidizer and one time you're a fast oxidizer.
Right. I've switched.
But it doesn't, but the whole thing about this HTMA test, all it's doing is measuring that at that given time,
Right.
and the how much minerals you got, that you
Are
were
burning through.
excreting.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But also I've learned that, and
In
that you
2020, after the world shut down and I had been stressed out and my life
mhm,
got turned upside down, I was a fast metabolizer.
yeah.
And then 6 months later, I was all of a sudden a slow metabolizer. I was a fast one and then I was a slow one. So there's like different, like fast 1, 2, 3, slow 1, 2, 3. So you don't really want to get out on the outskirts necessarily.
Mm.
You want to stick more towards the middle, is my understanding. I don't know if that's been your
I,
understanding as
I
well.
just try not to even like give it a label anymore, because
Mm.
I'm just more about looking at the ratios of these minerals, because it's always the same
Mm.
things that are off anyway. And
Sodium, potassium.
yeah, exactly. And there's all different reasons of why people have potassium that's really low. And also, again, people can make it worse by eating a high sodium with low potassium. But
Oh
this is going
yeah.
to get too complicated. But what I'm trying to say is, with a HTMA test, not to neglect the fact that you might it look like low calcium on the HTMA, but that means it's not coming out. So
Right.
And it's a very sort of pivotal part of how thyroid functions. But also even with a HTMA, it's not like a genetics test. You know, I could
Can change.
yeah, I'm sure whatever, you know, what I would be could potentially be very different when I'm in the UK in winter
Oh yeah.
versus in Georgia in the summer, because like I
Mhm.
was saying, the hormones influence minerals, light influences
Mhm.
hormones, and there's just numerous ways that things that things can change. But again, I think they're really useful if you read them properly. But I
Right.
found you can't do it without the blood minerals.
Mhm.
Again, if you try and just read blood minerals without a HTMA, you can't completely so, you know, look at the snapshot properly there. But I think it's just something. The reason I brought that up is because people just kind of go crazy over thyroid, and I did for
Mhm.
ages. And
Mhm.
sometimes I thought, well, you know, maybe, you know, yes, leptin's really important. I've, you know, done this, and I wonder what other things I can look at. And that's when I got interested in the calcium. But then a lot of the time, like you just, from experience of working with people and talking to a lot of colleagues, dairy and weight gain is just comes up all the time.
All the
And
time. All the time.
and again, like I was saying, the raw dairy, the calcium behaves itself, whereas in the processed and the unpasteurized and the
Pasteurized.
homogenized, the calcium sort of gets put. It doesn't behave itself. So again, that shoot up in calcium is just a really lovely recipe to stop the thyroid getting into the cell, and then people gain weight. And also, it's inflammatory as well, and
Mhm.
that you know, on the deuterium and sort of just general inflammation, HSCRP front is going to block people's sort of weight loss as well.
Yep.
So yeah, that kind of went off on a tangent, but I think what I'm trying to say is that as you know, as I've got older, I've just got more and more. I call it the hap snappigator. You know, I don't snap at you or the kids, but I just get more and more annoyed at people who just present me with one marker and ask
Mhm.
me to tell them why they're ill, or they'll send me
Yeah.
send me. I've had a HTMA. They tell me what's in it without showing me the picture and expect me to be able to fix everything
Right.
and without any other labs. And like
Right.
everything, labs are not the be all and end all. But like I learned by just running my own, and I did everything possible wrong with labs and trying to fix things because it didn't matter because it was just me, not clients. And then over the years, you kind of work out actually. I need all of, you know, I don't always need $5,000 worth of labs. There's plenty you can get from Quest and even from a HTMA, which isn't that expensive.
Mm.
And you know, just you can get a lot out of sort of triglycerides and just basic things, just HbA1cs and all of those basic panels. Because some people have sent me, like somebody once sent me in the post a hard drive full of labs,
Oh
like
God.
everything you could possibly imagine. So I said, "Oh, can you just go and get me a lipid panel and all the glucose thing?" And the triglycerides were in Europe, sorry, in UK units it was something like 1.6, and in the US it was something like 150, and the
Oh.
HbA1c was obviously like insulin resistance level, and they'd spent like
Then
this
that's going to
insane
impact all these other
everything.
labs. That's the thing.
Yes,
Like people don't
exactly.
understand the master hormones, right? So
Yeah.
for A1C is a 5.7, your HSCRP is elevated. There, we don't even need to necessarily go crazy about all the rest of this stuff until we fix that. You know, that's how leptin is so crucial in these things and with thyroid. And because it's a master hormone, it's going to impact all these other downstream hormones and all these other markers, your triglycerides, all of that stuff. And so people get so caught up in like, oh, look at this marker. And it's like, let's look at the A1C, CRP, leptin, fasting
Mm.
insulin, all let's look at those main things. And
And
then,
ferritin as well, because even
oh
just
yeah, you're big
ferritin
into the
by
ferritin
itself.
thing right now.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just because it's like the calcium, that all minerals are really important, but when there's too much of them in the wrong place, and then there's so much misinformation about iron
Mhm.
and iron overload, and Morley, bless him, literally just gave away goodness knows how many hundreds, if not $1,000 worth of session going through all of my labs.
Mm.
And even if people can just understand that ferritin shouldn't be over 50, because once iron gets in the liver and in places, it interferes with things like thyroid conversion, with
Mm.
sex hormone conversion and stuff like that. And it's just, again, misinformation about where it actually comes from. But then back to the leptin, that's what I'm like. Sometimes I actually really don't know with a person. So I'd rather, why not just keep it really simple and just fix your circadian rhythm? Buy a distill and have clean water. Stop, playing on your phone in the evening, and just wear blue blocks and stop
Hmm.
watching so much TV and
Hmm.
walk more, and maybe just start there. And I have found, even with my own biochemistry, the more I used to fiddle, the worse it got. And then I eventually, like, right, that's it. I'm not buying any more labs now. And I didn't do it for about a year. Then I went back to doing it, and lots of things by themselves seem to have settled back down again. And I also stopped pretty much all supplements, because I got to the point where, despite being a biochemist, I'm just messing things up by adding this and this, and I'm this, like, right, end of it. I'll just leave it all alone and then
Yep.
revisit it later.
Yep. Yeah, I think people just get caught up in, like, they listen to all these different podcasts, they listen to all this different stuff, and they think, like, I'm going to try these 30 different supplements and try this and try that. And the basics of the things that you just mentioned are not being addressed. And so they're just kind of running themselves on this hamster wheel. And there's a certain point that I've gotten to. So I was talking with my husband, I was talking with Matt last night, because he was listening to, because he knows I'm friends with Dr. Tina.
Yeah.
Who's been talking a lot about the GLP-1s. And she was on Dr. Hyman's show with Callie Means, who's a doctor, and kind of debating him on the whole thing. And, it was interesting to hear Matt's perspective on all of that. And he still, even after everything, he still thinks it's comes back to simplifying lifestyle, rather than giving people medications. And I'm like, it's always interesting to see how he takes this information in. But he was also like, oh, haven't you listened to this one? Have you been listening to that topic? I'm like, I just don't listen to a lot of stuff anymore, because I like to kind of figure things out and talk to
Yeah.
people. I love talking to people and hearing, how does this actually affect you, rather than, I listened to this podcast that said, da, 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 da. I'm like, no, how is that playing out with everyday people? Like,
It,
what does that look like?
Exactly. That's why I ran all those labs, because we had an argument in your house. It must be the house, and I was like, right, okay, well, I'll run labs then.
Yep.
And they were, and there was, it's not the house, because there was
No.
kind of, and it's one of those things. It's like everything. I'll just try everything out as well, because
Right.
it is like, I don't expect people to listen to me and do what I say. I expect them to take on board some suggestions and then
Hmm.
get some labs and test for themselves,
Yep.
especially over the food. Because the thing is, people get really angry if I just say stop eating collagen powder and don't eat dairy if you want to lose weight, and get rid of the nuts, because I've
Yeah.
tested it over and over, the whole nuts. Like, I had to hide the pecans from myself. I wasn't intending to eat them. They were
Just
purchased not by
reappear.
me. Well, no, you bought them, but I was going to make them into a keto cookie for your daughter, because
Yep.
I do sometimes cook her treats, and I don't actually eat them, not because there's something wrong with them. It's just, like, it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
And over the nuts, like when they get, and the dreadful peanut butter, that just absolutely no, absolutely no, no, no,
No.
no, no,
No, I
no.
can't.
And I've just learned, and I hardly ever ate it anyway, but I must say Reese's stuff's nice. And I ate, like, some Reese's eggs at Easter and then regretted it, and I didn't have
Yeah.
anything. I came to yours, and in this said shop there was, like, all kinds of Reese's things I'd never tried before. So I tried, like, a bit of each one, and then the antibodies got worse. So I was like, right, that's the end. No more
That's
peanut
it.
butter,
No
no
more
more nuts.
tasting.
Yeah, no more tasting, no more peanut butter. And I
I think
just
that nuts
left it
can
alone.
actually cause antibodies to go up
Oh
in
yeah, but
people.
also I think dairy can
Absolutely.
as
And
well.
dairy and nuts, that's the thing, I think can cause the antibodies to go up. And, like, where that we have gotten to with people, again, because so many people come to my leptin program and to your stuff, and they're like, all right, I want to lose weight. I really want to lose weight. I'm going to go straight to keto. I'm going to go straight to carnivore. And I'm like, stop. No. Like, I've drastically changed my mind about that, because number one, I find that if people are going to try to make that jump, like, too quickly, it is going to set them up to binge, and it's going to set them up to fail. So I've revamped how I look at food. And I'm like, okay, you want to lose weight? You're getting rid of uh,
Mm.
nuts, seeds, dairy, anything processed, anything that has a label or a freaking commercial on TV. You're not going to eat it. And people are like, it's restrictive. I'm like, I didn't tell you to go carnivore. I didn't tell you to eat
Mm.
butter. I didn't tell you to go keto. I just said, let's get rid of this stuff. It's actually like a confusing signal for your body.
And
Um,
it's full of heavy metals. The most
full of
heavy
heavy
metals come from processed food, and people are always waffing about the fish
oatmeal.
and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
filling. Whereas actually, it's the most is processed food. And
Right.
sure, there is some in seafood, and I don't deny
But
that
there's
amalgam fillings
selenium
have some.
to balance that
Yeah,
out. And then
but
you stick to the small fish like the salmon roe, oysters, sardines, yeah, that's Michael
or just
Crawford.
test it.
Yeah, exactly.
But also back to the whole thing, like you said about the being restrictive. A
Mhm.
friend of mine said this, and I really like her phrase because she is like me. She likes, I wouldn't say it's horrible food, but it's kind of what people like, things like liver and just meat or fish, or people would call it, oh, you're so boring, and it's like, no, it's I to me it's variety. But then
Yep.
my friend said, actually, you shouldn't be eating for entertainment, and I just really
No.
enjoyed that word.